Welcome to the Jen Fulwiler Show, coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee this time. I am at St. Jude's. Caitlin is back in Austin. We have her on a Zoom link here. And yes, and you can see that this is a very professional setup. For those of you who are not watching on YouTube, this is definitely one that you will want to click through. We put the link to this exact episode. What is this, 284, Caitlin?
Yes.
Yeah. So it'll be episode 284. You can click through, it's totally free, and see the YouTube video. So you can see I spent $7,000 just on the logo sign alone. This is a very successful podcast. Money is no object. And so you can see this is an incredibly just really high class setup. And to the untrained eye, it could look like my microphone stand is a it could look like my microphone stand is a paper towel holder that I took apart and I taped a microphone to. But no, this is actually, I borrowed this from NASA. It's really top of the line audio equipment. And this is not a little lav mic with Scotch tape on a microphone stand. It's really nothing but the best for this show. This show is nothing but quality. And, and I really do encourage you guys to take to prayer. Why are you wasting time on other podcasts that go to less effort to provide weekly, timely episodes? How many podcasters do you know who would be making their episodes happen while they are at St. Jude's Children's Hospital and just putting together none, zero. And also take to prayer. How is this podcast free? We can't figure it out. And in fact, St. Jude's is a research hospital, and their focus is curing cancer. And obviously, I agree that is an important goal. But we have asked them to set that aside and make that their second goal, their secondary goal. Their first goal right now is we're going to have all the scientists at St. Jude's Research Center trying to figure out how this podcast is free. They think they're going to have to set aside cancer research probably for quite a few months, but it will be worth it, and we might be able to figure it out at some point. So I have an episode for you that is nothing but quality. I am on fire. I've lived 1,000 lives. What?
Sorry, always.
Yes. Oh, and Caitlin, is your puppy around?
Oh, it is, yes.
Okay, so all right, yeah. So we have Caitlin. This is it could, to the untrained eye, it could look like I just have my laptop set up with a Zoom screen. But no, that's AI. She's in by satellite link. It's very, and here is her puppy. Wow, this is just a great bonus. You get a puppy by Zoom. It's amazing. Okay, I do have a great show for you today. I'll give you the updates on what's going on over here, what I've learned, how I'm staying sane. And then I'm also going to share, I had this moment. It was a very powerful moment where something happened. It was a core memory of my whole life. If I live to be 100 years old, I'll never forget this moment. It was incredibly powerful. And that's really saying something, because there are probably, 10, 12 moments in my life that I will never forget. And most of them are petty, bitter vengeance, when I was 5 years old, there was a girl, I don't even remember who it was, but she blew out my birthday candles. Yes, just and they finished singing Happy Birthday, and she leaned over and blew out my candles. So that's the kind of, when I'm 100 years old and reviewing my life, let me think about this existence. I mean, that's what'll come to mind first. What my archenemy did to me will be second. But this is a beautiful, positive God moment that it's nice. It's nice to have something positive to throw into the mix. But after it happened, it was just such a powerful moment that I was trying to think of. It felt like I was supposed to do something with it. And I did feel moved, like somebody needs to hear this. I felt this prompting, like one of my 5 YouTube viewers really needs this message right now. So I'll get to that in the second half of the show. I do feel like it's this message that some of you guys need to hear, and even if it doesn't land for you right now, it's just a good message generally, and it couldn't hurt to hear it. So I'll get to that a little bit later in the show after I give you guys some updates. This is the Jen Fulwiler Show, coming to you from Memphis, Tennessee, where I am at St. Jude's. I will be going back and forth between Memphis and Austin, so you won't always have my mega high-tech Memphis studio to feast your eyes on. Sometimes I will be back in Austin. And we publish new episodes every Wednesday, even when we're traveling, we've had a bunch of crazy stuff going on. We're fighting cancer. Still new episodes on Wednesday. Caitlin White is our lovely producer. And this is the podcast where you learn the art of the village hustle. That is being a hot girl boss, or hot boy boss, who knows that love and family and community are the foundations of all true success. What else? Oh, one of the things I was going to say is I really appreciate you guys being with me, because it is so good for my mental health to have this podcast as an outlet. And also those of you who have become part of my Patreon community, I've said it a million times and I'll say it now 1,000,001 times. That community is so good for me. It's where I can share a little more details about diagnosis and what's going on and things like that. Just things that I wouldn't want my kids' friends and frankly their ops from school to know. Just some kind of details about what we're going through that are a little more private. I put that in the Patreon community. But the second thing is that I have realized we're going to talk about blue flames today. And I've realized that one of the ways to describe my blue flame is that I love storytelling in all of its forms. So I like writing books. I like writing blog posts and email updates and written updates on the Patreon. I like telling stories here on the podcast, just regular stories. I like telling stories in stand-up comedy, which is a different, that's a whole different art form. But one of the surprises to me that I only learned through the Patreon community is, so for the higher level Patreon, I go into a little more detail about how I manage life and all that. And what I've started doing is I do these mini documentaries. And what I've realized is I actually love storytelling, even including, I guess you could say, like directing and editing. That's a very lofty term for I'm just taking videos, with my camera. We're not talking about, me and Steven Spielberg are like putting together stuff. But I mean, like, so here's an example. In the most recent Village Hustle episode, I think it was published last Thursday, maybe. I think it's from last Thursday. What I did was I chronicled my journey getting from my shows in Florida out to Memphis, which was a very difficult thing to do because there was that ice storm that hit the South, and it made it extraordinarily difficult for me to get to Memphis, which was very important for my daughter's treatments that are starting. Now, luckily, she and my mom were out there, so there was no question of her treatments not working, but there was a question of when I would get out there. And so I was sharing on the Village Hustle Patreon, just, all right, here's how I'm thinking about this. Okay, these 3 flights were canceled. So I bought a different ticket, and here's why. And here's why I did this airline, all that. But suffice it to say, what I've realized is I really love the editing of it, that I'll add voiceovers and transitions. All the editing you see on that is actually done by me. Caitlin could do it. She's brilliant at it. But I actually just enjoy it. Because that's a form of storytelling too, where I choose to cut. I'll get some B-roll of a crowded airport and cut to that and narrate over it. So I'm having so much fun with that. But my point in bringing this up is thank you to everyone who is on that Patreon, because there's no point in putting it together if no one's watching it. So it really gives me a boost. It gives me a great creative outlet, a different way to use my blue flame. by being able to put together those mini documentaries for the Village Hustle Patreon. And then, of course, all levels of the Patreon get my updates, and after each podcast episode, we do the after party. Oh, I would have, Caitlin, can you remind me to do the after party?
Of course.
Yes, I would have forgotten. Where we keep talking in a little more detail about each episode, and all levels of the Patreon community get that one. So you should be part of it. The link is in the show notes, or you can go directly to patreon.com/thisisjen. That's patreon.com/thisisjen. Okay. So we are in Memphis. I've been here a few days now. We are in the St. Jude housing. And first of all, I want to say how great St. Jude's is. Everything they say in their fundraising about what they do for people is true, and then some. They're so good to us. They anticipate every need. They bend over backwards to make sure that we are getting what we need in the most convenient ways. They're very concerned if Lane is in any amount of pain or anything like that. They're like, tell us immediately, let us help. We don't want you to just tough it out and be in pain. They have been so amazing. I know a lot of people, that's a common thing, to donate to St. Jude's. I mean, I've probably given them some money here and there over the years. And you never know with charities, sometimes you're like, I mean, is the founder driving a Ferrari? Is this really? I can tell you now, as the recipient of what they're doing, they are actually underselling what they're doing. This experience is incredible. We feel so well taken care of, and it's just amazing. And by the way, MD Anderson was great too. A lot of you guys know we switched from MD Anderson to St. Jude, and that was great too. It's just, that's an adult hospital. St. Jude's is a children's hospital, and so it's just different missions, different things going on. So my 19-year-old daughter who has medulloblastoma, so we got here and they ran some additional tests because they're experts in this field. They have some new tests that go a little bit deeper and get a little more accuracy. And I'm tired of these tests. I'm just gonna be like, I don't want to hear it anymore, because it's like maybe the tests are causing this. I mean, every test result is like, oh, it's worse than we thought. I'm tired of this. Like, nothing. Caitlin, I didn't tell you that. But by the way, you're finding out with the podcast people.
Yeah.
Okay, I told you like 2 weeks ago, and I said this on Patreon, that we found something out that it was a little worse than we thought. Then yesterday, it's worse again. Like there's another. It's like, yeah. So we called the tumor Larry because we don't like to say metastatic. We don't like to say aggressive. Larry is curious. He likes to know about all sorts of parts of the body and how he can, go on adventures, not just stay in that brain area. And we also just say he's enthusiastic. So to put it in more like terms that are perhaps more palatable, I had said before that with medulloblastoma, there are different levels of what the scientists would say aggression. And it's like, if you're trying to get a guy out of your house, there is one that it's really quite mild. And what's weird is that would be the one that you would expect a 19-year-old to have. It is the one that, if it pops up at that age, it tends to be the one that's really pretty mild. So it would be like if you had an event at your house and there was a British gentleman having a cup of tea, just really enjoying your home, overstayed his welcome a little bit, and you said, "Pardon me, sir, we're wrapping up. We're going to head to bed. Would you mind leaving?" And he'd be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I'm going to head out. Please, I'm so sorry." And then he sends you I'm sorry note on engraved stationery to just say that he was really sorry that he was there. That's what we were hoping it was. That's what we were praying it was. That's what we thought it might be. Alas, we're at the whole other end of the spectrum. So if this is, so we call the tumor Larry. Larry is not a tea sipping British guy. He's in, like, imagine a drunk Australian who likes to fight. Yeah, and I had said before, so we're constantly getting tests that are like, oh, it's worse. So if you think, oh, I already heard this, no, you didn't. You heard a different way. It was worse. So, because I had said a few weeks ago, I said, okay, we thought that Larry might be drunk on White Claw. The results we got a few weeks ago were like, it's Jaeger. So he's not going to want to leave. So then the results we got 1 week ago are like, he's drunk on Jaeger and has been doing meth. The results we got yesterday are like, he's drunk on Jaeger, he's done some meth, and someone gave him a samurai sword. And we're trying to get him to leave. And he's like, no, I want to invite like 10 of my friends over, and you're not getting me out of this house. And it's time to rage. It's time to party. So that was a lot. Now, it was a day of mixed emotions. Caitlin, I'm sorry, I haven't told you all this. So Caitlin's like, a really close friend. She's finding out as you guys are finding out. Cause I actually didn't tell anyone, obviously, except for like family, but cause that's when you really got to sit with. Yeah. To be like, we knew, I've been saying for months that it wasn't a good one. But it's, it's very bad. It's very, very bad. And, so there was that, but here's something interesting. This is the doctors, or doctor, one in particular, who we're working with here at St. Jude. This is his area of specialty. He knows a lot about it. He and the people here are pioneering fighting Larry. They are Larry specialists. They are more confident in fighting Larry than I thought they were. I didn't know that there were teams of people who were like, we might be able to get this guy who drank half a bottle of Jaeger, is on meth, and has a samurai sword. Like, we might be able to get him out of your house. After reading, but I'm just done reading test results. But yeah, I think I'm just going to tell our doctor, I'm just going to assume that, because some of these tests take a while to come back, I'll just assume it's all terrible, okay? And if anything comes back better than we thought, you tell me that. Otherwise, I'm just going to assume that we just got the worst one, because I'm tired of looking at these results. But ultimately, it was a positive day, because my research had led me to believe that it was just a very, very difficult fight. Now, I don't want to say it's not. It is still a very, very difficult fight, and it's a fight that is, you don't want to hang your hat on one particular, like, we're just going to get this perfect outcome, whatever. It's a long fight. It's a complicated fight. But the odds are better than I thought. And I don't want to throw out numbers, because all they do is stress me out. But let's just say, I thought the chance that, we could kick Larry out the first time and he doesn't come back, I thought that was like very low, very, very, very low. And it's actually better than I thought. Now, these are still just chances. I mean, it doesn't mean you definitely get that result. Just like the chances were, it was the easy type. The chances were, it was Winston, sipping tea in your house, and he politely leaves. Like, so just because the chances are better than I thought, I'm not like woohoo. But that was very encouraging. And so even though there were some results that pointed a worse direction, ultimately, I felt very encouraged. And then here's the second thing. We also got some other good news. And I think, Caitlin, I did tell you this one.
Yes,
okay. And I just want to thank every single one of you who prayed for Trent Horns fans to pray for us, because the scans look good. And with Larry, that was not a given. And the scans look good. They look very solid. That does not mean by any stretch of the imagination that we have beaten this or anything like that. But it does mean we are starting off on a good foot. So what happens from here is Lane will be in Memphis for 7 months, and she will be doing kind of a scorched earth chemo plan. It's some of the hardest chemo, and it's just tough stuff, and there's no way around it, and it's very hard. She has started that. I am on one of my little breaks right now. So for each cycle, she spends a certain number of days in the hospital. And right now, my mom is with her. If you're wondering where Lane is, like, where she, did I have her wait out in the hall? I'm like, Lane, just because you're like going through chemo, you can sit in the hall. It's the podcast. Listen, I've got my 5 viewers are like waiting for this content. No, she is in the hospital, and it's not like in an emergency situation. This was planned for her to be there. My mom is with her. My mom does a ton of caretaking for her, so everyone's comfortable with that. And she's only in there for monitoring, so it's not like, she's in the ER, but I had to record my podcast. This was a planned thing. We got her all set up. She's having a cozy night. I'm going back over there in a little bit, but that's where she is, if you're wondering. I won't drag you guys down with the details, but so, what's really interesting is having a child with a enthusiastic type of cancer going through very heavy chemo is hard. It's crazy enough. That's not an easy thing. That's not easy. You know what else is not easy? One thing that I had not mentally prepared myself for is we spend all day, every day, hanging out at a children's cancer hospital. So you walk around the halls, and there are all these cute little kids, and they all have cancer. This is what I do all day, every day now. This is my reality. I don't know what I could have done to prepare for that, but other than try to finally get that Valium prescription I've been trying to get for years that nobody will give me. But that is very, that's crazy. And, being at MD Anderson was one thing, but they're all adults. And so that was kind of strange because Lane was the youngest person there. So that was weird in some ways, but I hadn't mentally prepared for that. I guess there's no way that you can. So it's all very hard, which is the understatement of the year. It's, it's a worst case scenario. This is a life worst case scenario, absolute nightmare. Now, so how am I not coming on this podcast and just, screaming and sobbing? To that I say this episode isn't over. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. But this is a life skill that I talked a lot about in, let's see, it was, if you go back to my episodes, fall of 2024, so like October, November, December of 2024, is when I really started learning about the process of journal speak and that kind of thing. And I really think that was God preparing me for this tough time, because it has helped me extraordinarily. And I want to share this with you guys in case, God forbid, probably most of you won't ever go through anything like this, and I certainly hope you won't. But I know you all have struggles. So many people who follow this podcast, a lot of you guys have kids with special needs. You have maybe a parent who has cancer, God forbid, something like that. I mean, so, a lot of us go through big challenges at some point. And those practices that I developed a little over a year ago have been so clutch. So here's the gist of it is this. The idea behind journal speak. And the woman who popularized this is Nicole Sachs, Sachs. She worked with Dr. John Sarno, who some people have heard of. And the idea is that what she calls journal speak, it's just a journaling method where you learn to exercise, and I'm using that exercise with an O, like as in exorcism. You learn to exercise your feelings, the ones you might be stuffing down, the ones that feel inappropriate. And I think especially for listeners of this podcast, that you guys are definitely candidates of people who would need to do this, because I've met many of you. I feel like I know you pretty well. And many of you do have, because you're such good people, you have a tendency you want to do the right thing. You want to even think the right thing, as a lot of you guys are from the Catholic ghetto. And so there's a feeling of, well, if I felt angry at God, that would be a bad thought. I should not have that thought. I should not have that feeling. That is not appropriate. Things like that. The idea with journal speak is that you give yourself a pass to just let those crazy voices that are in your head have their say. And you, if it helps you, write out a disclaimer, write out a legal disclaimer at the top of it that says, this is not my highest self. This is not my best self. This does not represent my real feelings. I am just giving a voice to the crazy emotions that are within me. And then you set a timer for 20 minutes and you just write it out. Now, for those of you who are not writers, I think this is a blind spot of Nicole Sachs. I do think that there should be a place for people who are not writers. So maybe it's you talk to a friend, maybe it's you leave a voice memo for yourself that you delete. Like, you just imagine you're talking to a friend, record it on a voice memo, and then just delete it. So I do think it works just as well if you're not a writer to do it verbally. That's something that my friend Leah Darrow, she's a life coach and all that, we do that sometimes with each other. We use an app where we can send audio and video messages. And sometimes when I'm not in a place where I can write, I will tell her, I'll say, Leah, this is verbal journal speak. And what that means is I am not saying that I fully stand by what I'm about to say. This is me venting. This is letting my, whatever you want it, some hippies call it like inner child or whatever. And I think there's something to that. It's like an immature part of yourself that, needs to have a voice. You're just letting that out, and there's no judgment. And you don't worry about, does this make me a good person? Does this make me a bad person? And you just let it out. And a key part of it is you let yourself feel it. One of the biggest things that I've realized in recent years is how much so many of us are not... I think a lot of us don't really fully know how to feel our feelings and sit with them. We can feel some of them. Like for myself, I can feel rage just fine. I can feel bitterness. I can feel resentment. Ask the multiple, acquaintanceships that have ended because of this podcast, the places I'm banned from because of this podcast. I have no problem with those emotions. There are some others that have come up in this cancer journey and at other times in my life that I realized, I don't want to go there. Oh, no, I don't want to feel that one. If I'm journaling and just, I don't know, getting into some deeper existential things that, again, feelings like angry at God, why did this happen to us? And just existential deep stuff. I can talk around it. I can write about it. I can do verbal journal speak with Leah about it. But there is a way to do it where I'm not feeling it. And I think it's one of the scariest things in the world, honestly, to let those feelings move through you, let them come up and sit with them. I've said before that I think I think that 90% of alpha male, red-pilled podcast, weird trad internet content would go away if like these guys could learn to feel their feelings. For example, like David Goggins, that like, just because my foot is broken doesn't mean I can't run 50 miles in a hailstorm. And I love him, by the way. I truly love David Goggins. In fact, for Leah's birthday one time, I had engraved in this very girly, like it was a crystal plaque, and I had engraved in cursive a David Goggins quote being like, "You need to stop being a effing bee and like get up and hustle." So I love Goggins, but also everything he's doing is because he's quite literally running from his feelings. And a lot of us do it. You stay busy, you cause drama with people, or you find things to beat yourself up about that are not really problems, like, oh, my social media use or whatever, and you're agonizing about that, and what do these people think of me, and oh, I posted a picture on the internet, am I vain? What does that mean? Or do I look fat? I'm vain for asking that. And it's all that, really, this is all just distractions from sitting with feelings that you are terrified to feel. And it's an incredible life skill when you can learn how to go there and sit with it and let it move through you and then turn it over to God. Because like in my Catholic ghetto, there's a lot of talk about like turning it over to God. But what I realized is there were a lot of things I couldn't turn over to God because I wasn't even acknowledging that those feelings and those fears and that existential this or that. I wasn't even acknowledging that it was even there. And it's only been when I do journal speak and then and as part of that process, I really try to let those feelings be there and just feel them and just kind of let them move through me. Then once that has happened, I can say, okay, this dread that I feel, this profound sorrow, this anger that is like it feels like a tsunami of just pure white hot anger. Once I have let that kind of be there and bubble up and move through me, then I can say, okay, you know what, God, I don't know what to do with this. I'm turning it over to you. But in the past, what I would do is, go find some phantom thing that's not really a problem to beat myself up about, or like start an argument with my husband, or I don't know, just go and maybe I would sometimes scroll reels or whatever, just to like not have to be present with that, just to not have to feel that feeling. So the fact that I worked really hard on that in the year leading up to Lane's diagnosis, I do think it was inspired. And it's become a great life skill. So like when she started chemo, she's starting a very, very, very difficult kind of chemo. Like when the nurse was setting it up, hanging it in the IV stand, he had to wear like a modified hazmat suit. I mean, it was crazy. Like he was all covered in stuff. He had to have, like, in case, I don't know, one drop got on him, and it's in this black opaque bag. And then they talked to us about all the horrific side effects and all that. And if I didn't know these skills, I wouldn't be like still doing podcasts or having anything amusing or funny to say. And the fact that I did my shows in Florida last week, by the way, those were great. Thank you to everyone who came out. They were so good. Caitlin, I wish you could have been there. They were so much fun.
Me too.
Oh, they were a blast. They were so good. So that's the only reason that's been able to happen, is because I have plenty of those moments. I mean, really daily, where it's like, all right, let's go there. Let's go there. When they were starting chemo, she's actually doing multiple types of chemo right now. And when they were talking about the side effects and everything, I mean, being a caregiver of someone on this massive regimen it's a part-time job in and of itself. You have to constantly be checking multiple things. I mean, it's truly crazy. And to give you just one example, I mean, there is this primal cave woman thing that rises up where it's like, I'm letting, I see the guy in the hazmat suit coming in with the black bag to put in my child's body, to give my oldest daughter this stuff. And there's this cave woman instinct of like, you're doing something like, this is poison, this shouldn't be happening. And so you have these, like all of these like dark conflicted feelings. And because of the work that I've learned to do, I realized, okay, I need some time to sit with this. So I wasn't able to do it immediately, but once things were kind of settled down and a few hours later, I went, St. Jude's is so incredible that in the hospital rooms, the parents have their own room. Remind me to send you a video of it, Caitlin. Actually, Caitlin, can you make a note to put this video in post? So if you guys are watching on YouTube, you should be able to see this now. Caitlin will add it right here. I have a video of we have a separate parents room that is attached to the child's room. So it's attached, it's an adjoining room, but we can kind of have our own space as well, which is incredible. So remind me to send you that video, Caitlin. So you'll be able to see that here on YouTube. But so once everything was settled down and Lane was asleep and all that, I was like, this actually has to be my top priority. I have to feel these feelings. And it was horrific, honestly, to just let it in. Just my conflict about like, it's like you're letting them poison your kid, but it has to happen. Do not leave a comment about like there's some herb that you can do instead of chemo. Don't even think about it, because I don't have time to show up at your house and slap you in the face. But I would have to do that. I would have to if anyone leaves that comment. That is a practice that I have learned in intense situations. And remember this, I truly hope that, you'll never go through anything close to this, but just it could be you lose your job. I mean, that is a crisis too. That is really bad and really stressful too. And I have learned this practice of saying when something really difficult happens, it has to be my top priority to feel these feelings. I find that the best way to do that is through journal speak. It helps me, kind of get to the core of it. But I think you can also do it even without writing it down. So it allows me to get those, just kind of get those feelings out. It allows me to let them move through, and then I can turn it over to God and just say, all right, well, now we all know what these tortured feelings that are within me. We know what the, quote unquote voices within me are screaming, like, this is so terrible. How could, we know all that. And God, now I'm turning it over to you. And once I do that, I do feel better. I do feel unburdened. I do feel just kind of more refreshed. I feel lighter. I'm able to kind of just make jokes and be positive. So for me, that has been a really big part of the process of managing this crisis. Is I make it a top priority. And it sounds so silly. I sound like such a hippie, but I really do think, okay, something major just happened. Watching them in the hazmat suit start this chemo. Okay, I like feeling my feelings. I don't write it down because I'd be so embarrassed if anyone ever saw that. It's like, call the bank, reply to my manager, feel feelings. I have too much pride to actually write that down, but I know that has to be at the top of the list, and it allows me to have a surprising amount of energy and positivity and faith and all that as we go through this. So I really, really, really recommend that. You can Google Journal Speak. Nicole Sachs, Sachs. She has a podcast where she talks about it. And again, if you are not a writer, if that's not your thing, there are other ways to do it. The goal is just not running away from the feelings, learning how to identify them and letting them bubble up and be present. And it will be surprisingly torturous. It really will. You'll want to run away from it. You'll want to, jump on Twitter, start an argument with someone, whatever. But, man, I'm telling you, so many people. Okay, this is an aside. You know what, Caitlin? I need to get my own jingle bells. I think someone gave them to me at a show, so I can just, when I'm in Memphis, I can just do the jingle bells. But I really do think that we've talked before. This is tangent alert. We don't have the jingle bells here. A lot of the fight, flight, or freeze response that comes up. We've talked about this in previous episodes where they've now identified that people react to difficult situations by fight, flight, freeze, or they have another one, fawning, like going into full people-pleasing mode. And a lot of that behavior, I really think, is us avoiding feeling our feelings. So for example, if there's someone who's always yelling and causing drama and they're arguing with the lady at the checkout stand, they're yelling at the person in traffic next to them, they're constantly fighting and causing drama. So they have a fight response to stress. And that's what it looks like when they are avoiding their feelings. Whereas people like me, we tend to withdraw, dissociate, just kind of go into our own little world. I could stare at a glowing screen for hours and hours and hours, just like cancel plans, pull back from people. That's also not feeling my feelings. So I do think that a lot of people's behavior, like when you get quote unquote triggered, so to speak, and I know that is a way overused word, but I do think it's a legit concept that sometimes events happen that like just bring up a lot of stuff and like you're not handling it very well at all. That's what being triggered means. And if you can get in a habit of just letting difficult feelings move through you, you will find it much easier to avoid that behavior, whatever it is for you. You will find it much easier. And also like fixating type behavior, obsessive behavior, so much of it either goes away or gets a lot better when you learn how to stop avoiding your feelings. And it's like a sport. It's like something you can get better at, letting the feelings be present, identifying them, and letting them move through. So that has been a massive skill for me, a massive skill as we go through this. Like when we've gotten the many times that we have gotten test results, it's worse than we thought. Again, I'm like, okay, I've got to feel my feelings immediately. We got to put this on the top of the to-do list. All right, 4:00 p.m. today, feeling feelings. I'm telling you, I wouldn't be sane. I would not be sane. I certainly wouldn't be doing this podcast if I didn't have that system in place. Okay, so now we are going to the moment that happened that I really felt like God was telling me that that some of you guys need to hear it. And even if it doesn't land for you right now, I think it will at some point. So before I tell you what happened, we have some new listeners here. So let me review the concept of having a blue flame. So the idea behind having a blue flame is it is your love language to the world. It is a way that you share love with others. I have mentioned before, I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, mine is, and you can have more than one, but storytelling. I love stand-up comedy. I love doing this podcast. I love writing my books. It's storytelling. I love editing my Patreon videos. You found a blue flame when it does not feel like work to you. The example I always give is in the middle of having 6 babies in 8 years, I wrote Something Other Than God. I mean, I was pregnant, had newborns, all that. My first book called Something Other Than God. I wrote that in the middle of it. It took 5 years. I had to rewrite it from a blank page 3 times because my agent, I'm so glad he did this, but he would accept nothing but the best. Ted Weinstein, love that man. And he didn't care. He's not from the Catholic ghetto. He's not Christian or anything like that. So he could not care less about having a, religious story out there. But he was like, I'm not even submitting this to publishers until you write something that I personally would want to read. And I think he's atheist or something. And I would send him complete drafts and he'd be like, nah, I don't know. I'm just not, you lost me. And I'd have to rewrite it. So anyway, good times. Those were good times. But now look at how you go look up Something Other Than God on Amazon and you see how many reviews it has. And so, it was worth it. So people would ask me at the time, they would say, why are you adding work to your life? You have all these babies. They'd be like, Jen, stop messing around with this book. Why would you add work to your life? And I didn't at the time have a lexicon to explain, like, no, this doesn't feel like work to me. When I put the kids down for a nap and I get a solid hour where I can work on a chapter or something, I have more energy after I have done that. I am a better mom. I have more to give back to my family after I do that. And it makes sense because love is always generative. Love is always generative, meaning it leads to more love. It's like 2 + 2 = 5. It expands. It leads to more love. And so writing for me is this act of, I want to love people by telling this story. And so it fills me with love. And when you're in a state of love, like selfless, I want to help. I love people. This is something I can do for people. That fills you with energy. That's a great light way of being. It makes you feel very light, And so that's one of the ways that you found your blue flame. And I also wrote a book on that subject. And one of the examples I gave is you can have different blue flames. It can change over time. So for example, my grandfather loved being an engineer. He built refineries. Most of his work was done in Mexico and South America. But interestingly, he was part of the team that built this bridge in Georgetown, Texas in the 1930s. And when those massive floods came through Central Texas, the terrible ones that caused all of the fatalities, the floods hit that bridge that my grandfather was part of the building team for really hard, and it lasted. It did not collapse. Caitlin, did I tell you about that my grandfather built that bridge?
No, I had no idea.
Okay. If you ever end up in Georgetown, Texas, there is a restaurant. Oh, I think it closed down. Well, RIP, but there was a restaurant called El Monumento. You can find it. I'm sure they'll put, El Mon, yeah. And there is a bridge that you can see from the patio of that restaurant in Georgetown, Texas. And that's the one that my grandfather built. So anyway, that was his love language. And he was so good at it. He was just such a kind man. He would give jobs to people in South America that maybe, he could tell they were qualified and would do a good job, but maybe just because of kind of cultural restrictions or whatever, they probably wouldn't normally be given a chance. And he built refineries and just did great work. But he got hepatitis from eating, food that had been contaminated. Almost died. When I say almost died, I mean they actually flew him back to Texas from where he'd been living in Mexico just because it was hard to get bodies across the border. So they just wanted him to be buried there, but he ended up making it. He lived to 100 years old. Amazing. But anyway, so that ended his career, and he was really lost for a while because he's that greatest generation, born in the 19-teens. And that generation was, as a man, it's like, your work is like everything. And he did not plan to retire that early in life, but he discovered a love of cooking after that, because he couldn't leave the house as he recovered from hepatitis, and so he cooked. And I never knew him as an engineer. He was retired by the time I was born, but I did know him as a chef. We would go over to his house and he'd be like, all right, I'm trying this chicken cordon bleu with a new type of creme brulee that has, I got fresh vanilla beans. He'd like order them from catalogs. Like it would take 3 weeks to get there from France, but he'd be like, I took fresh vanilla beans for this creme brulee. And so he found this new blue flame. And especially as he got older, as he got in his 80s and 90s, he was still amazingly spry. He could drive to the grocery store and all that. But, you know, he couldn't like go travel the world or anything. And cooking was this way he could love people. My mom's friends from tennis would come over. And so she and 10 of her friends, by the way, I haven't had, like, the total number of friends I've had in my life is like that's who my mom would know in like any given year in her life. I mean, she is so extroverted. It's amazing. So anyway, she and like her 10 tennis friends would come over, and my grandfather would put on a whole feast for them, and everyone would be laughing, and he'd be refilling the wine. That is what a blue flame looks like in action. It is something that gives you, like in my grandfather's case, the chef, like it gave him energy he would spend weeks putting together the menu, and he would ask me to have them printed up like in a fancy font or something. And it gives you energy, and it brings people together, and it's a win-win, because the people who receive it, they enjoy receiving it. It's a gift to them. So it's really a beautiful thing. And here's how it connects to what happened to me a couple days ago. I think that when you are seeking to live that way, to find your love language and share it with the world, it becomes kind of a way of living. It becomes kind of almost like a lifestyle where you discover who you are when you are seeking what your blue flame is. And again, it doesn't have to be one grand calling, just what your blue flame is today. How are you supposed to, bless people and love people today? And when you're trying to find that out, it puts you in the mode of just kind of figuring out, who did God make me to be? And how can I do that well? And how can I not be held back by self-sabotage, by second-guessing, by neuroses, by spiritual attack? That's another thing I talked about in my Blue Flame book. Is the devil doesn't want any of this, by the way. Can you imagine all this, feeling light and loving people and blessing people, and how it's generative and it brings people together? The devil hates all of that. So not letting the devil hold you back, and not letting, again, neuroses, second-guessing, self-sabotage, all of that, not letting that hold you back, it becomes this beautiful process where you really figure out who you are, not in like an egocentric way, but in a, how am I supposed to love people? How can I be my highest self and be that unapologetically? Because I know that when I do that, that will give other people the chance that will give other people permission to be their quirky selves unapologetically. It's really it's a beautiful thing. And when I have seen people go from second guessing, this kind of ego-based, very sensitive, protective, like, well, I don't know if I want to try that because it might be stupid, or maybe I have too much of an ego that I think I could be a good cook and cook for people. That's spiritual attack. That's neurotic. It's very ego-based. It's like, notice when you have that type of second guessing, neurotic kind of thinking, notice how you're constantly thinking about yourself. That's not of God. It's like you're like, oh, but what will people think? Or this might be dumb, or maybe I'm being bad. It's like there's a lot of the word I in there. And when you can overcome that and let go of that, you discover this freedom. It's like a freedom to love, a freedom to be comfortable in your own skin, and a freedom to shine your own light the way that only you could. And when you do that, it's contagious. It makes other people be like, man, I want that too. Like, how does she have that like connection with God? How is she so comfortable being so weird and quirky and like failing? You know, she tried that one project and that was a real disaster. Like that was really bad, honestly. But you know, the police were very understanding of, you know, how that worked out. But people are like, wow. I mean, she's like, she doesn't quit. She doesn't quit. It's crazy. It's amazing. And it gives them permission to be their quirky selves. It's amazing. Okay. So now, we will see if I can talk about this without crying. I don't know. All right. So, I was at the St. Jude's cafeteria thing. St. Jude's takes care of everything for you. Food, they're just like, how can we serve you? You are having a hard time. How can we make your life easier right now? So you're just like surrounded by food. I'm gonna have to take so much extra black market Ozempic to not be 300 pounds by the end of this. It's like Lane will be sick on chemo. I'll be sick again because I'm like, I don't know. They said it was from Wuhan. I mean, it seems like they have good manufacturers. I don't know. But yeah, I'll be sick from my black market Ozempic. And but anyway, food is not an issue here. They're so kind. So I'm getting my food the other day, and this little girl walks up to me and stares at me for a minute. And, you know, I waved at her, and you guys, she said, "Can I give you a hug?" And I was like, yeah. And so I gave her this big hug, and she just, you know, stared at me and said, "Thank you." And then her mom walked up, and I said, "She's so delightful. She's so lovely." And her mom reported that the little girl said to her mom, when I walked in, the mom tells me that the little girl turned to her and said, "That lady is so pretty. Can I go up and give her a hug?" Now, that's how we know God was trying to get my attention. God is up there like, this woman is vain. She never listens to me. So if I want to speak through a child, I know, I'll appeal to her vanity. Well, yeah, we'll have someone tell her like someone thought she was pretty. And then she'll be like, "Oh, I'm sorry. I'm lit. Did anything else you'd like to? I'm all ears. What else?" So this girl was so delightful to me. And if we need this sound effect that here, I'll do that, pretend that's Jingle Bells. If I may I mention race for once, and I'm not trying to be that person, like if my mother-in-law, she would like mention everyone's race. She'd be like, "Well, this night's Pakistani man at the grocery." I'd be like, "He's Syrian." She'd be like, "Whatever, it's the same thing." I'm not trying to be that person, but I think it speaks even more highly of this young woman's character that so she's black and I'm not. I'm white, in case anyone hadn't noticed. I mean, it's hard to tell. You know. But my 23andMe actually showed I am 0.2% Egyptian. So yes. So next time you see the pyramids, you're welcome. That was us. That was us. So yeah, yes. And Caitlin, aren't you like 0.2%? What are you like?
0.2% sub-Saharan African.
Nice. This is a long story. I told you, I was like, I'm going to have a surprise. Like, I'm part Nigerian, I know, and I'm not, but we do have the Egyptian. Okay, so anyway, the point is, we really need that tangent alert.
Yeah, for real.
Some kids do, like, we all know the reality of like race in the modern era, and there are some kids who might, if someone looks different than them physically, would be, especially, here's what I'm trying to say, guys. The only reason I mention race is because I had my, look, they're right here. I had these boots on They're size 12. These aren't small. These are size 12 boots. It's just me and the drag queens buying these boots. And I am 6 foot tall anyway. So these add about 4 inches. Listen, I'm a 6 foot tall albino in red boots. I have been told that people find me to be intimidating looking. And I also know that I have resting bee face because I've had 2 security, just random employees here at St. Jude's be like, "Are you okay? Like, are you?" And this is like me relaxing. So I do not look approachable. I think especially if you're not like, I mean, I don't know who she, what community she's from at home, but if you're not used to being around, uptight, tall, albino-looking, huge white people. It's like there could be kids who aren't from that community who are like, maybe I won't give her a hug. She might eat me. Like, I don't know what's going to happen here. So that's the only reason I brought up that factor. So the light that radiated from this child, I don't call a lot of people angels. That's not the tone of this podcast. But she was like an angel. Just the innocence. I was in the presence of just pure goodness and love. And I would have said that even if she didn't say I was hot, okay? That was even if she had just said to her mom, like, "Why is that woman so big and so white?" Like, then I would still be saying that. But she's just so purely good. And she just like walked up to me and asked if she could give me a hug. And she gave me the biggest hug. And then I ran into her the next night. No, I guess that was night before last. I ran into her night before last as well, and she was so excited to see me, and we said hi, and her family is beautiful. Her mom and dad are just they're amazing too, just an amazing family. And after she gave me that hug, we had such a nice exchange with her mom, and as she walked away, it just hit me like a ton of bricks. It took me a second for this to dawn on me. I was like, she has cancer. This is a children's cancer hospital. You're not here if you don't have cancer. I mean, there may be like 1% of kids there's certain types of like severe life-threatening anemia and stuff, but 99% of kids, they have cancer. And you guys know what St. Jude is the patron of. You don't get in here if it's an easy one. That's not what St. Jude's is for. So, she's got a battle. And when I thought of like that kid has to go through this, like, she's little. She's like, I asked her what grade she was in. She's, okay, hang on. I talked to 2 different kids. She's in 3rd grade. I'm pretty sure. Yeah, she's in 3rd grade. And when I thought of like, you guys can fill in the gaps. Like as she kind of hopped away, with her mom, and when I saw her again and she smiled, and I was like, she's got a bad one too. Like I just, I think we all get a few moments in life, and I really think we each only get a handful of them, where something that maybe you knew to be true intellectually, the dam breaks, where it goes from like something you could just kind of talk about in theory to something that you feel and know, just like in your bones. And just in that moment, I was so overwhelmed with this feeling of Like we have to do whatever we can do to make the world a better place for this sweet, sweet soul. Like it made me want to like be her personal bodyguard. And if anyone so much as doesn't smile at her, I will take them aside personally and be like, we're going to try this again. Okay. We're going to walk by this little girl again. And when she smiles at you, you've got one shot to give her the biggest smile that you've ever seen in your life. And I have a taser on me, also some mace. So that would be satisfying. Like if anyone was ever mean to her, I'm just standing by, I take out some mace and I just spray them. That'd be amazing. But it really, when I thought of the profound just unfairness of that little light going through something so difficult and needing to be at a place like this, I had this moment of openness where I just said to God, what do you want me to do about this? Because just about this, meaning like the injustice of the world, and like we have to make the world a better place for this child, or I didn't even know what I was asking. So here's the inspiration I felt in response, and this is the message I was ultimately going to get that I think someone needs to hear today. Here's the message that I felt when I told God, like, what am I supposed to do in response to what I'm feeling here? I did feel like he was telling me to tell this to my 5 YouTube viewers, to just say publicly, it's so important that you fight for your own light. That phrase came to mind. I think it must have been from the Holy Spirit, because I really didn't even understand it at first. And I don't have a lot of like beamed down messages from God. I'm not one of those people who's like, I got a word, most of the thoughts that are in my head, I'm like, yeah, that definitely wasn't from God. But this one, I felt like this one might be, because I didn't even fully understand it. It was like, it's so important. It's so important to fight for your inner light, to find that best version of yourself, to find that blue flame, and to go through that process of, how can I love the people around me in the unique way that only I am meant to do, through whatever work, broadly defined, through whatever work constitutes your blue flame, and also through just being yourself and being comfortable with being yourself. Because there was a time, not too long ago, probably like 5 years ago and before in my life, when I just hadn't done that work. I didn't know what that meant. And I don't think I would have had that positive encounter with that little girl, because I spent so much time being neurotic and being wrapped up in my own head and so worried about what everybody thought of me. It's almost like a trauma-induced narcissism or something that I know, like, you guys aren't narcissists, like in a toxic, in the way we classically think of it. But I think there can be a point where you're just so stressed out, and you're so at your limit that you end up just kind of being self-conscious and being protective of yourself and thinking of just yourself all the time. And it is so important to break out of that. And it's not always an easy process. It took me years to figure out who I am, how I am meant to be moving through the world, and to get comfortable with that, and to get comfortable with myself. And let me tell you, if I had been standing in that cafe, let's say 10 years ago, 2016, 10 years ago, she wouldn't have come up to me, and we wouldn't have had that interaction, I'm sure, because I had a different energy at that time. I was more self-conscious. I would have walked in there feeling self-conscious. Like, am I doing the wrong thing? Oh, people might think I'm dumb. Oh, I hope they don't think I'm taking too much food. And that impacts your body language. That impacts your mannerisms. You seem tense. You seem maybe even angry. You just give off a different air when you're in that neurotic, stuck in your own head, protective, self-conscious, unintentionally narcissistic mode. And the fact that I've learned how to get out of that and just kind of figure out who God made me to be, that the absolutely weird, quirky person that God made me to be, and just like get comfortable with that and be like, it is what it is. It's certainly not perfect. We're working on it, but like, it is what it is. I'm now able to walk around with just more openness. I think I seem more open than I would have. And certainly, and I think the reason why I felt moved by God to share this message with you guys is you guys are way better people than I am. I mean, if God can, use me to have a pleasant interaction with the most angelic child in the world, imagine what he could do with you, because you guys are like starting out as good people. I'm really not, but you guys are so sweet. I mean, I met a bunch of you in Florida, and the only constructive criticism that I have for any of you guys, and I mean like every person I've ever met who says they listen to this podcast and are following along, is I just wish you'd be more yourself. I just wish you'd worry less about what anyone thinks of you, because you might be in the same room with that same little girl. I mean, she's not from here. She's from out of state. Who knows? A year from now, when she's in 4th grade, maybe she'll be having a tough time with this battle that she's in. You could end up in a grocery store with her, or in Walmart with her, whatever. And what if that day, that sweet little angel, what if it would like really make her day if a nice lady just noticed her and smiled at her and said, you have a really pretty dress. But what if you missed that opportunity because you're in your own head? You're like, oh, I've gained weight. These are my fat pants. I have to wear my nacho pants again. And everyone thinks I'm so this and that, and people think I look stupid, and I shouldn't have done my hair like that. I don't like this haircut. And this little girl rolls by you in the shopping cart, and you miss a chance to smile at her and make her day a little better because you're up in your own head. Or what if there's a blue flame that God has been trying to help you discover? Like who knows? Let's say it's like arranging flowers or something. What if one day, 5 years down the road, you end up, arranging a beautiful flower arrangement that somebody gets for her and sends to her, but you never end up doing that because you never tried anything, because you didn't want to fail at anything, because you overanalyzed everything, and you never started because you didn't want to fail and you thought people would judge you, and it's blah, blah, blah. Your self-consciousness and your well-meaning but misplaced, worrying about what people think of you and just not wanting to fail and like being kind of sensitive, it might, one day you might miss a chance to bless that sweet little angel or someone like her. And that's what hit me in that moment when I came back to this place that we're in, this housing, and I just flopped on the bed. And that's the conviction that hit me, was this process that I talk about all the time on this podcast of finding your blue flame, and the related task of finding who you are and uncovering that and fighting for it. Again, the devil will try to stop you. I mean, this isn't an easy thing to do, and it might take years. It took me years. That process of fighting for who you really are, quirks and all, and finding your blue flame, if you give up on that, that's not fair to other people. I think sometimes because in the secular world, there's so much self-fulfillment, podcast bro language that it's all about you. It's like, bro, you need to figure out what Bitcoin business you're meant to start so that you can drive a Ferrari. And it's all very you-centered. And so it could feel like giving up on finding, something that you enjoy doing and who you are. It could feel like, oh, that's a good thing. That's me being humble because I'm not focused on myself. But actually the exact opposite is true. The exact opposite is true. By giving you this personality and this body and this life, it's like God has given you a toolkit. He has given you a toolkit for blessing people. And that's what the toolkit is for. And if you give up on figuring out what these tools are and how to use them, you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. You are missing opportunities to bless other people. And so the work that you do, figuring out who you really are and how you can be weirder and hotter and more, into your blue flame and just be like you at a 10, at a 10, directed towards blessing others and helping others and doing the things that fulfill you and are good for other people and all that. Turn all that up to a 10. Staying committed to that, it's not actually about you at all. It's about that little girl who thought about blessing me and giving me a hug when she is a third grader in a very serious cancer battle. Just think of her next time you're thinking about giving up, or you're just like, I'm so flawed. I'm so, I don't have a blue flame. Like, come on, I have no talents. Everybody hates me, whatever. You can't quit because it's not about you. It's about her. And you can't take a risk on you giving up on yourself and figuring out who you are and what your blue flame is giving up on doing something that might ultimately bless her or someone like her. And that's why you can't quit. So sorry if you're thinking about quitting, you can't. After that little girl gave me a hug, it's over for all of you. No more. I'm not holding back on this anymore because I now feel personally responsible that each one of you be your highest and best self and find that blue flame and do it unapologetically and just be so weird and so imperfect, because we're not going to take a chance that sweet little girl might miss out on a blessing because we were being neurotic and too in our heads and too self-focused. So we will end there. Caitlin and I are currently hearing no music, but hopefully right now you're hearing the exit music. Patreon.com/thisisjen is where you sign up for the Patreon. Obviously, the financial support is nice, but it's also just a great community and a big mental blessing to me to have that outlet for my storytelling. And I think we will be back next week. I don't know whether I will be here or in Austin, but keep praying that Trent Horns fans pray for me. And I'll see you either from Austin or Memphis next week here on the Jen Fulwiler Show.